have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where and what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day folks, how are you? I'll get rid of that bloody great poster in front of my face, which will make life a little bit easier, and you'll be able to see me. How fun was that for you? Well, g'day folks, how are you? I'll get rid of that. Where is that coming from? I have a rogue channel. Where is that coming from? Coming out of me somewhere. I have a rogue channel. And that's going to get really annoying. For whatever reason, that's going to get really annoying. And that's going to get really annoying. For whatever reason, that's going to get really annoying. And that's going to get really annoying. Right, as near as I can tell, I've only got one browser open, and now I'm getting this terrible feedback. Are you getting a terrible feedback, Luke, folks, in the chat? Let me go down to the bottom of the chat. As I can tell, I've only got one browser open, and now I'm getting this terrible feedback. Are you getting a terrible feedback, Luke, folks, in the chat? Let me go down to the bottom of the chat. As I can tell, I've only got one browser open, and now I'm getting I might just log out for a moment and come back in and see if that fixes this, and I'll be back. In the meantime, I'll leave. All right, let's see whether or not that has made any kind of significant difference. I can't hear any weird looping going on, so oh shit, I can hear weird looping going on. Any kind of significant difference. I can't hear any weird looping going on, so oh shit, I can hear. I am very confused. Oh, hang on. Do I have? I'm very confused. I'm shutting down absolutely everything that I have working at the moment. And there is one new thing that's happening in all of this tonight. And there is one new thing that's happening. And I reckon that's what's happening here tonight. And I can't figure out how to stop it. And I reckon that's what's happening here tonight. Now I've figured it out. Until further notice, we will not be live streaming on Telegram, along with everything else. Bloody thing. So, but we do have a Telegram site. If you want to join Telegram, I didn't talk about it too much the other night, but there is a Telegram site. If you get the Telegram app, you can find it at t.me/Voice of Freedom Real. And you will be able to subscribe to that channel and know that you're getting me. So, wow, what a beginning to a show. How interesting to have thought we're going to break new ground tonight, be out on a new channel, but I'm going to have to delve into that and figure out where the mute button is on Telegram, because that was the issue there, and certainly a big delay. Thanks to everybody who's been in the room having a bit of a chat tonight in the lead up to the show. Yes, it is a long show. Now, who was it? Somebody did have a couple of comments about how long a show it was likely to be because of one. I thought I starred a few of those, but Clearly, I've done. Oh, I had to log out. That's. Yes, one does talk a lot, but tonight he says a bit. And sometimes you got to talk a lot to get a bit. And sometimes, as I mentioned to somebody who was saying, oh, you know, you're being sucked into the whatever conspiracy theorist channel. We've never been watching long. I've been down all the rabbit holes. Well, all the ones that I know of, and quite a few that I probably never knew of to begin with, and have found since going down the ones I did know about. Having is a variety of things. But I don't think that he is untruthful. I saw somebody comment, and quite rightfully so, I don't trust people if I can't see their faces. I tend to have a similar kind of ethos about me. However, I do understand the need for, or I do understand the reasoning that Juan O Savin has for not showing his face. Having said that, when we began our call today, he showed his face. No, we weren't recording at the time. So would it make a difference to you if you could see his face in any way, shape, or form? I guess for some people it would, given the stories that are surrounding who he may or may not be, because, you know, I don't think I'm telling any secrets out of school. There is a lot of talk that Juan O Savin is in fact JFK Jr. And as I said to somebody today, when they said, oh, is he John? I said, well, he's a John. He could be a John. I don't think that Juan was the name given to him by his mother, but John may have been. And, oh, you know, did he look? Well, look, I didn't take much notice of JFK Jr. when he was alive. At the time he was dead, I've seen all the pictures of what he looked like back then, but what would he look like today at 55? I don't know, given their penchant for having surgeries that change their looks. He could look like Princess Diana by now, for all we know. So it is what it is. But yeah, Andrew, I think you've nailed it. I don't know if that's Wayne Willett is the right name, but he has been, I think, outed as something else, ex-Special Forces or something along those lines. However, he does seem deeply connected into the Trump organization. And as you'll hear in this interview, which was conducted with Becky O from Truth Seekers. In fact, it wouldn't have happened without Becky O from Truth Seekers. Thank you very much, Becky O. You'll hear that he spends a great deal of time, and has spent previously a great deal of time, at Mar-a-Lago, a bit like Pauline Hanson, and we discussed that as well. So without further ado, because this is a big show, I did want to touch on the price of silver. $93.49, I think it was, before I crashed the computer there before and turned everything off. Don't think you've missed the boat yet, folks. You haven't missed the boat. Buy is my suggestion. Buy silver if you can, and buy as much of it as you can. I don't see the price going down significantly anytime soon, and if it does, it'll only be for a brief time. You might recall, if you go back a few months, you will see that I was suggested to me then that silver could be at $100 an ounce by Christmas. Well, here we are, a little over 10 days out from Christmas, and we're at near enough to $94. It's a very exciting time, folks. It's a very exciting time, which, interestingly, we didn't really talk about. So without further ado.
Okay, thank you very much to Juan for joining us today, Carl, Voice of Freedom, and Becky O from Truth Seekers. And look at that beautiful sunset.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Juan, so thank you so much for joining us. Just want to catch up on what's been happening there. Is heaps of stuff I can't even keep up. But one of the the main things I'd like to talk about or start with, just for the audience, is just to give an update on Tina Peters, if we can.
Well, for people that may not know, she's a person that was a county clerk in Mesa, Colorado, which is a state kind of the western central United States. And this county where she was at, it's not a real populous county. They use Dominion vote machines there, and she didn't run with the elections. She ran for office because the lines were so long at the in order to renew your driver's license that it just annoyed her one day. They had 3-4 hour lines just to get your driver's license, and it just didn't make sense with the small population, everything, and as big as the office was, and plus this county was a little bit large and spread out. Well, you would have to drive for several hours to get to the city there where she was at in I can't remember the town, but the town where the county seat is. And I think it was Grand Junction, yeah. And so she wanted to open an office on the other side of the county, and just a small office. And everybody said it was going to cost a fortune, and she campaigned on this, and she won. And immediately went out and opened up an office on the other side of the county, just like she said. And the extra cost was almost nothing, because now people could go to one or the other office. They didn't have to drive for hours, and the wait times went down to like 15 minutes to get your driver's license. So people were just, average wait time, we were just ecstatic. When people inquired about the vote stuff, she would tell them when she first came in, that her county, her state had the gold standard of vote systems. It was so convenient, easy, trustworthy, everything. Anybody that'd say anything, she'd say, it's just not true, because she'd had the training and all the specialists come in and all that. And Colorado is the place where the orders is for Dominion vote machines. So, they have a lot of pride because that's their home state. Well, then after the 2020 election, which Trump won, and he won it in her county also, when people complain, she says, well, it just doesn't make sense that there's anybody messed with anything, because Trump won. If they messed with something, they'd have probably tried to make it so Trump didn't win. And so it didn't make sense. But then you look down the ballot, senators, congressmen, dog catcher, there was things that just didn't look right. And to win or not win the national election was one thing in the county for, say, president. But there was other positions down the ballot that, things just didn't look right. So she had asked some questions, and the context was vote officials must keep the vote record of every election for 22 months. And 25 months is the state law, 22 months is the federal law.
Okay.
And so in case there needs to be an audit, etc. Well, after the vote, and with some of the questions that were coming out, and especially there was another vote in her county for county commissioners, and something went wildly wrong, was the opinion of people there, county commissioners or city council, I can't remember. And people thought something was really strange about the way this vote was. And she inquired, can we do anything to relook at this? And then the word came down from the state, what the position's called secretary, and the Secretary of State that runs statewide election stuff said that Dominion was going to come out and do what was called a trusted build and essentially rebuild their vote machines at the offices all around the state. And Tina said, well, but by federal law and state law, I have to protect and preserve my vote record, my vote information for almost 2 years. So I'm hesitant to let anybody touch my vote machines where I could have some kind of a crisis. They make a mistake and it damages it. That's my record. So she says, can we have somebody make a copy, just like you would make a copy of your computer, okay? Just in case anything goes wrong, you can reboot it up, reload the information, have a snapshot of what your computer has in it at that moment that you do a downloaded copy. And the state said no, and we're not going to help you. Well, her job description allows her to do just that. So she had somebody come out, make a copy of the record inside of her machine. In fact, some of the stuff that was used to do that download originated with me personally. And so they made that forensic copy. And then Dominion came out and they went through the computer, the vote machine, and did all sorts of stuff. After they were done with this trusted build, which wasn't 5 minutes, they're supposed to just change batteries, make sure everything, boots up right and walk away. They're not supposed to actually change anything. So they made an after copy of what the machine looked after they're done. They found out that Dominion deleted 29,000 files.
Wow.
They also altered other stuff inside of the machine. And in fact, we have the guys in the US now who actually did the electronic side of this. They've been testifying in grand juries in a couple of places now. And what happened is that this copy that Tina got became the Rosetta Stone, where we could listen to what these guys were telling us they did, and we could go into the Dominion machine record before and after that Tina got, and we could see the before and after.
Yeah. And
so it was very cool. And by the way, in this sunset, and you can't really see it, it's too small. Like your Zoom says sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But off to the left of the picture over here, there's a cruise ship. And it's just sailing off into the sun. It just left
beautiful.
Down Dakotas. Yeah, it's very, very cool. So anyway, Tina made this copy. Well, it's very embarrassing to everybody within the Dominion, the state, and everything else about what's going on. So they have they tried to target Tina and went after her for various reasons. Eventually got this criminal conviction. It's very arguable that this was a valid, legitimate prosecution. And we've been fighting that ever since.
What exactly has she been charged with?
Well, the person that came in and made the copy, they said he was using somebody else's ID, which he was, but that it was some kind of criminal impersonation, which it wasn't. Yeah. It was just so he had convenience come and go from the room and use the restroom and all that. And the person that actually whose idea it was knew what was going on. And he never got out of Tina's sight, which he didn't have to have a badge on at all. Yeah. He just had to be in her presence and like that. And it's hers to decide what the rules are in the office. She made the rules, break them. So there's all sorts of things that it's kind of wonky. But at the end of the day, the judge gave her the maximum he could figure out. He said the reason he was doing the maximum was because he wanted to punish her to the maximum possible, because if she was loose, anytime she's free, she's talking about these things and saying lies about the elections and all that. Yeah. And so the judge wanted her not to be out to talk to the public. Well, It's her First Amendment right. In America, the Constitution protects you with what's called the Eighth Amendment
Yeah.
from excessive sentences and things like that, and punishment for speech and things like that. Well, the judge in sentencing actually said stuff that is a direct violation of the U.S. Constitution. At the end of the day, the courts have been not helpful, if you will.
Yeah, they
So
put her in jail, did they, Juan? They didn't.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
put her in
might have great grounds for
9
appeal.
years.
Jail.
Well, we've been in there on the appeal, and the courts have not. They're still out there in just some kind of crazy land. So with
That's the
that
court
in mind,
system.
yeah, the court system is kind of a captured operation, especially
Yeah.
there. Just to give people an idea, in Colorado, in the 2020 election cycle, Colorado decided, because of these prosecutions of Trump out in New York and their wonky convictions of Trump that were then appealed and reversed, that they could take Trump off of the ballot in Colorado. And so every court, every judge where it went to in Colorado, including the federal court in Colorado, said, yep, they can take him off and he's out of there.
Yeah.
And other states were then ready to follow Colorado and take Trump off the ballot for the 2020 election. It went to the Supreme Court, and you have 9 judges on the Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court. And usually when we get decisions out of them on stuff, and because it was an election, it was raced there. It had to be done very, very quickly. So they raced this case through the courts and got it to the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court. When they got there, usually, the best you could hope for is like a 7-2 decision. Because the liberal justices always, they're certain there, so it'll be a 6-3, 7-2, 5-4. Very, very, very rarely you get a unanimous decision. And in this case, whether you could take Trump off the ballot, where all the courts, all the judges, all the prosecutors, everybody said you can do it, we're going to take him off and it's gone, and all the other states are going to follow. They get to the U.S. Supreme Court, it was a 9-0 that you couldn't take Trump off the ballot. So
Wow.
Colorado was completely at odds, a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court. That tells you how far out of whack with reality even the most liberal justices could not agree with the judges in Colorado. So in that environment, that's where Tina was convicted, and then she's been in prison, and the prison conditions have been just absolutely stunningly horrible. She's a cancer survivor. You're 70 years old. Your skin gets thinner as you get older, and it's hard to stay warm. Her cell has been in the 40s at night.
And she was in solitary. Didn't they stick her in solitary confinement as well?
We got her out when she was put in solitary a few weeks back. She was put back into solitary 2 days ago. And she's livid, we're livid. So now let me give you the other part. So we've made quite a stake. And in the course of all that, President Trump has said he's going to take drastic action if they don't figure out how to let her go. The federal government has asked the state to relinquish custody of her to them because she's going to be needed in some federal trials and things like that. The governor of Colorado has said, no, not happening, and we're not giving her up. It's just bizarre. We had appeals concerning her conviction. And the fact that she could not be out on bail while she's appealing her sentence, because she's going to win the appeals, just like Trump won the appeals on being taken off the ballot. She's going to win that. But she's been in jail for 14 months, plus all the trial and like that over several years preparing for it and all. it's all going to get overturned. Normally, they'll let, drug dealers, drug manufacturers, murderers out on bail. They have until the conviction, the appeal is finished. They wouldn't let it happen with Tina. She's too much of a threat to society. 70-year-old. Her son she's a Gold Star mom. Her son, Remington, was killed in a skydiving accident, which is a very questionable one, by the way. He was on the Golden Knights parachute team and demonstration team like that. So very, and doing, military stuff. So,
well, her story isn't dissimilar to the whistleblower in New Zealand who put together all the figures of what was going on during that period of COVID and the jab. Now, he's about to go to court, I think, but he at least was allowed out on bail, but the government very definitely have gone after him, and she seems to be suffering the same deal, only on a state level.
Yes, and she's been convicted. I don't believe our person in New Zealand was convicted yet.
No.
So he can be out on bail. She was convicted, but even there in this kind of a case, you have to understand she's never even had a traffic ticket. Give me a break. Goody two shoes. Oh my gosh. She hasn't even gotten one traffic ticket, 70 years, 50 years of adulthood. Come on, man. Yeah. You just got to wonder, come on. You didn't even speed once where they could catch you and get you in a red light camera or something. Come on. So she's a total goody two shoes. And yet they're treating her like Jack the Ripper. It's grotesque.
Yeah.
We thought that with President Trump now being midway through his second term, and we've seen a lot of changes, I thought, in the justice system, in the Department of Justice, in the FBI. The Supreme Court seems to have come down on him, 50-50 in most of the decisions at the moment, I think, which is better than you could expect previously. But you're saying that the American judicial system is still fractured, much like Australia's. Believe that we're still a long way from, the real truth coming out.
Well, we're not halfway through Trump's second term. We're just less than a year into a 4-year term. So what we do have coming is what we call the midterms. Between the 4-year cycle of presidential elections, you have other offices, congressmen, senators, and things down the ballot, governors and mayors like that. And so the midterms are coming up in November of 2026. We're less than a year out from them now. Here's what's going to happen. And, if we want to talk about what's going to be the big news all over the planet, let me clue your audience in ahead of everybody else. And I've talked about it here with U.S. audiences, but most have no concept, do not see it coming, have no grasp of what's about to happen. So I'll tell your audience, give you a sneak peek. Trump is about to sign, institute a national emergency, just like he did a national emergency March 13th of 2020 over the COVID situation. And then he could take emergency actions at all sorts of government levels because it was a national emergency, and suspend other laws that might normally be in place. He's about to declare it a national election emergency because of the information we have about the theft of the 2020 election and others, and how they were rigged. And they were rigged from outside the United States and inside. So it's foreign interference. We've been attacked within our elections, kind of like a Pearl Harbor. And so with that in mind, he is literally days away from signing a national election emergency order. In the context of that order, when he signs that, he's then going to do other stuff. So probably within a day or two after that, he will sign an executive order As we understand it, it's based on a proposed version of the executive order that my team put together months and months and months ago. It's been sitting on his desk, 17-page proposed order. We'll see what the final version looks like. We've been told it's at least 80% what we had, if not 90. Attorneys, they gotta make it their own version. La la la.
So this is going to impact a lot of places with what Trump's about to do.
It's the most important thing that Trump will have ever done in his life. It's the most important thing. It's the cornerstone of everything he's doing within his being president, commander-in-chief, his whole time in public office. And why is that? Because when he signs the national security election emergency into being, he can then go into the states and the counties, and it doesn't matter what Colorado cares about or somebody at any county. There's 2,500 counties in America.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what a clerk or a judge or anybody else says. In the context of a national emergency, he is king. And he is going to order, first off, right off the bat, that all the voter rolls, the stuff that allows you to vote, be set aside, all the existing ones, because we got all these illegals in here. We got people who are put on who are not citizens at the driver's license offices and all the other stuff. You can't clean it up. There's no way to clean it up completely. It's just too messed up. So what he's going to do, he's going to declare a national election emergency. Then he's going to put in place the executive order concerning elections. And right at the top of the executive order, first few paragraphs, deals with setting aside the existing voter rolls. All citizens who want to vote will have to re-register to vote. And they'll have to do it in person, not online, with valid government-issued ID. And they'll have to verify their address in that district and then sign on the voter registration card under penalty of perjury that all have is accurate to and correct. That will be countersigned by a notary. Every clerk in the clerk's offices around the country is also a notary because they're recording documents. So they will record it, sign it, and then notarize it with the stamp and everything. And that's your voter registration card. And then it will go to the precinct where you're going to vote so that they can compare your signature and ID information to verify that you're who you say you are. So,
do you think that there's going to be an element of the digital ID here? Like, here, quick, go and get your ID this way?
No, not right now. And I understand all the stress over that, but that's not quite where we're at with this. We're going to, any government issued ID for the time being, it may over time, if you're going to travel, get on an airplane, you got to have it now.
Yeah.
But I get, Conspiracy Central, all the concerns there. At some level, with where we are in the world, it is what it is, because you have to be able to screen people enough in this modern age to know exactly who we're dealing with. So with that in mind, though, when Trump has the voter clean and you don't get to vote, there won't be any malarkey about who's voting. Then the second thing is it's an in-person vote. You're not going to be voting over the internet. You're not going to do it with the Dropbox. You're not going to do it on your telephone. You're not going to be able to do it in the U.S. mail. You can't send it from everywhere else in the world back home. The only people who will be allowed to vote remotely by mail are service members within our armed services, and in extreme cases, people that have an illness or problem of some sort that's well documented. So the the executive order is a hand count paper ballot counted where cast. You're not going to transport these ballots to a central vote counting center, half a state away, where they cover the windows and you can't see what's going on. The votes will be counted right at the precinct where they're cast, and precincts of 1,500 or less. So you won't have these mega precincts with 10,000 people in them. Everybody there, for the most part, is probably going to know everybody that's voting. Precincts of 1,500 or less.
Yeah.
And then tabulated and reported right there, posted on the wall. We've had situations, it goes back to a book written by friends of mine years ago, Vote Scam. And what was being recorded at the precincts was not what was being written down in the state records. They would call it in, and you go out and look at them. We knew what the precinct numbers, we started comparing, and we looked at what was actually recorded at the county offices, and they weren't even close. You'd be off by thousands of votes because they would cheat, and then they get somebody in office that wasn't who the people voted for. It was just a racket. So in this case, there'll be very transparent what the numbers are at the precinct and the reporting, and it will be precise, accurate. So
all over the world to elections all over the world, various countries, including Australia. So will there be a blowback or a follow-on from this in other countries?
Absolutely. So let me slow everybody down in Australia and think about what I'm about to say here. We have the people in our physical custody here in the US right now who cooked the vote in these election machines. Dominion, Smartmatic, ES&S, other machines, because they all use the same software. So they're in our physical custody right now. They are testifying before criminal grand jury investigative bodies in a couple of different states right now. And eventually they'll be testifying at Gitmo in criminal military trials. That's coming, and it's not that far off. So when that happens, one of the things that we have affidavits from them about, and have had for several years now, we had them outside the country, when asked, if you stole the election in America 2020, and you've been practicing this for quite a while, how many other countries besides the US have you done this with yet? And their answer is they did it in 71 countries plus the United States. Now think about that. 71 countries plus the United States. Over half the population of the world has people governing them who aren't the ones they voted for. So what my response is for you and for these other countries, and what President Trump has been signaling, we first have to get our house in order. We were attacked. It's an act of war to overturn and disrupt the election process of another country. These things were done from outside the United States. We tracked in 2024, and we know it was similar in 2020. We tracked 35,000 fraudulent paper ballots printed in Japan, shipped to Singapore, shipped to Vancouver, BC in Canada, and then trucked into the United States. 35 million false ballots, and they were shipped out across the country. And there was another group of ballots that came into the eastern United States along a different route that was millions. So with that in mind, these people, you have to have the paper ballot to also match with the electronic. There's things they have to do there. So these people claim to have overturned elections, frauded elections with counterfeit ballots and votes, which are more valuable than counterfeit money, by the way, because if you have counterfeit votes, you get the right people in office, they can allow you to spend the money. So with that in mind, they said that they've corrupted 71 out of the countries. besides the US, what has Trump said he's going to do? We're going to get America back on track, have honest elections, and then we're going to go out into the rest of the world and help them to hold honest elections there also. Yesterday morning, we picked up Maria Machado out of Venezuela. She was the one that ran against Maduro, and they frauded the vote. So we have her in protective custody right now. And once Maduro's out in Venezuela, which we're going to take him out, he's going to, come out, in a box or in cuffs. He's coming out. When he is out, we will help Venezuela to then get lawful leadership into play there, and get back control of their own country there. Same thing in other countries around the world.
In Venezuela, obviously, the oil is the big question mark in mainstream media, and the question mainstream media seems to be interested in is who's going to get the oil out of the ship that the US stormed today. I don't think that's really the big question. I think the bigger question is how much pressure does that put on Maduro? And he's obviously saying that he's staying. So we've heard now for some time the CIA have been operating behind the scenes there and trying to get him out.
Well, hold on. Let me interrupt you for a second. There is a component of the U.S. intelligence system which has been working to install leaders in power using these fraudulent vote machines. And in fact, when Venezuela first developed the Smartmatic system, it was with assistance from CIA operatives in order to overturn who was in control in governments all across the world, but especially in South America. So there's been a component of our CIA plus MI6 and MI5 out of England, our FBI here, and other agencies around the world, including German intelligence, Israeli intelligence, French intelligence, who have been assisting, and it's like a club to instill their favored leaders in various places around the world using these corrupted electronic vote systems. So there is a divide within the American system between some of these people in the investigative agencies, including the CIA and FBI, who have been working behind the scenes to not let this be challenged, not let it be uncovered, their involvement in the vote fraud. And that's why a number of these leaders themselves will go to prison for the rest of their life, many of them, because of what they've done to overturn the elections in countries around the world, including Australia.
So Maria was supposed to be elected for Venezuela president, wasn't she? So that's why you've captured her for safety?
Well, we didn't capture her. We went and put her in protective custody.
Okay.
Because she was in danger. She came willingly because she might have been assassinated at any moment. So we've got her in our care, and when the time comes, we'll allow her to go back and help the people of Venezuela. And you mentioned the oil. We have sanctions. We're stopping stuff. China's been in there messing with us, and that oil was headed for China. We don't want their oil. We're exporting oil out of America again. Under Trump, we have enough oil. We can export it. We don't even have a need for all the oil we're producing. So we don't need Venezuela's oil. And the world, for the moment, just like Iranian oil and Russian oil. We don't need Venezuela's oil, and we're not trying to take that for America. We're stealing their oil fields because we need the oil. We don't need their oil. What we do need is that the money that comes from the oil goes back to the Venezuelan people, not in the pockets of a bunch of mobsters and thugs, which is what Maduro and all of his people are. They're thieves. And it's going in primarily not even to Venezuela. It's going to Cuba. It's going to Russia. It's going to China. It's going to Serbia. Okay. And to all of these people, their friends in the system. So we stopped that oil from flowing so that it's not going to enrich them further, and they'll have to argue over it. We warned them, don't be sending your tankers in here because we're going to cut it all off. They wanted to send it out with Venezuelan oil. Well, we're going to hold on to it. They can have their tanker back. If they want to take it back to Venezuela and pump it in the tank somewhere, that's fine. They can have their boat back. But as long as it's got Venezuelan oil on it and we're sanctioning it, it's not moving. So we'll just park it, put the anchor down, relax. You want to keep a crew on there to make sure that all the systems are going and like that. Beautiful. That company is going to have a bad hair day.
How long do you think it will be for the Australian people to basically see the election integrity here, Juan? Like we obviously know that it was the people that got in.
Well, let me just say this.
Yeah.
When you say we know, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, like much of America, the election denial, the inability to acknowledge that there's some kind of a problem in the electoral process in Australia is very, very high. It's because of the programming in the media. It's also the intimidation of politicians and a lot of the people involved. If you say that the election was frauded, now people want to look down their nose at you like there's something wrong with you. And are you serious? And how, gee, I feel bad for you that you're that dense, that you don't understand this. Those of us that actually understand exactly what's going on and how it was done, it's as plain as the nose on your face. It's going on. And most people actually know it. It's just not convenient to try to go there. So what's going to happen for Australia is this. America, in the course of the arrests that are to come, number one, Trump's going to do the national election emergency. Then he's going to issue the executive order about how elections are going to be held. Hand count, paper ballot, counted where cast, with voter rolls, all from scratch. Nothing existing being used. And then the results tabulated and posted at every single precinct in the country. Thousands and thousands, which is going to make any kind of fraud, criminality, very, very, very difficult. Very difficult. And election results, same night. None of this days or weeks later. No box votes, nothing electronic at all, not a single machine anywhere. This is something even the people around Trump have been fighting him over. I mean, I know the backside, and they're just livid. And Trump has been as livid back. I'm not authorizing not one machine anywhere in the vote, anywhere in the tabulation, anywhere in the registration to vote. Not a single machine. We're going to have an honest, fair election, done, period. That's the way it is. Now, when he does that, that is going to be the standard for the rest of the world. As the rest of the world hears what happens in the trials, including, by the way, now here's where it gets wonky for people in Australia. Everybody take a deep breath. I'm just telling you the way it is, okay? In the testimony, we are going to hear, and we have affidavits, we have everything. The whole worldwide. Now you got to just take a deep breath. Think of the magnitude of what I'm about to say. The entire planet was subjected to the COVID fraud in order to finish and seal the deal on stolen elections on planet Earth forever. They were going to use this supposed COVID pandemic to force all remote, all the voting to be done remotely, electronically, over machines, over your cell phone, everything. Yeah. And you'd never get another honest election ever again. because you'd never be able to get into the system, and the politicians that would get into power would never vote down the electronic system, because that's how they got to power. You'd only get the ones in power that got there through the fraudulent electronic vote. With that in mind, you're going to hear testimony that for a very large percentage of the Australian people is going to be a hard pill to swallow. You were forced to participate in a fraudulent pandemic and subject yourselves to shots which were dangerous, which were not safe, which was all part of a scam, not even, to try to make, things better in the medical community, strictly to take control of the way we vote forever across the planet. That's the testimony. That's what's in the affidavits. That's what people understand. That'll come a little later. That's about those portions of the trials and information. The main body of that comes out probably mid-2027. But that's where this is going. So the vote fraud, to seal the deal of the vote fraud for the rest of eternity on planet Earth, was this pandemic. And that wasn't as small as it turned out to be. The resistance all over the planet, including in Australia and Canada, was, but especially here in the United States, was that we wouldn't go for the second, the third, the fifth, the 12th variation of the vaccine. They wanted you getting vaccinated almost every month.
Yeah.
Eventually, for the next part of the crisis, the next thing, which was just silly. It was never valid. But if the first one didn't kill you, the fifth one would for sure, right?
Still happening.
And it's still happening, and I know that. But here's the thing: this is the echo of something that's already been exposed, already been revealed. But the problem is the programming, the fear mongering was so strong that even very reasonable people were scared within an inch of their life, and went ahead and got the shot, and then it took their life, or is going to. And they're still pushing that out on people when we already know that the whole thing was a fraud.
Yeah.
In World War I, just so everybody knows, there's been all sorts of research done subsequent to the Great Plague. In fact, we sent researchers out to burial sites in some of the northern areas where people were buried, and it's in a permafrost situation, who died from the flu in 1917. There was a worldwide pandemic also. And what was interesting about that, when we looked at those people, and they actually took samples, and at the time this happened, when this research was being done almost 2 decades ago now, when they looked at the bug itself, if you will, it really wasn't a horrible influenza virus, nothing much different than what we have today.
Yeah.
But as we looked at it, you know what was wild? The ultimate conclusion, not just by one team, but by multiple teams looking at it, was this: the reason it was so deadly in that period, more people died of the flu, the influenza, in World War I than died from bullets.
Yeah, wow.
All across Europe, okay? What did they find out? They were wearing masks, and they weren't clean. They were literally reinfecting themselves and staying infected because of the masks they were wearing. What was foisted on us was that if we changed the masks frequently enough, that we wouldn't have the same problem. But that's not true. Doctors in a hospital, nurses in a hospital setting, they'll change masks 5-10 times a day. And then the other thing is that, of course, the virus itself, which is real, The virus itself is about 1/5,000th the size of the gaps in the masks, even in the best 95 masks. Okay, so it's like trying to stop a swarm of mosquitoes with a chain link fence.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Okay, but when you get back to the rest of it, so we still, I have someone right now who is a distant relative who has not been out of their house since 2020.
Oh, wow.
Who has everything brought into them and wears a mask in their house. Now, this is a person that's in their mid 80s, but a brilliant person, genius person, had businesses, done stuff, traveled the world. I can't believe it. It's so shocking to me that they're so inculcated with this fraud that they're destroying the last years of their life.
It's often the ones that have been most successful, the ones that have gone to university and studied hard, that are the deepest involved in not being able to recognize the fraud. Because if they were so good at school, all it really means is they've taken the programming. You don't go to university to question your professor. You're not going to get your degree that way. You're going to take the program the professor gives you and get your degree. Therefore, we challenge them on every level. I call it failing the IQ test, and academics don't like me explaining it to them that way, but that's simply what it is. You were the kids that sat at the front of the class, got straight A's, got to the university, got to pick doctors or lawyers, whatever the highest course you wanted to do, you got, and you got everything because you agreed with everything you were taught. You took the programming, whereas people like me sat up the back. We questioned everything.
But let me just say this, and I can do this maybe from my location and have a little bit of license. But let me just ask the question, and it goes to, a lot of Americans too. I mean, it's not unique with you, but the people that created this country, there's a certain DNA to the American people on the whole. They left, my relatives, 5 generations back, 6 generations back, they left Europe and came to America and never saw a mom or dad again, wrote letters, had relatives, sisters, brothers, children, and never saw them again because it was such an arduous thing to come to America and to move across to places where they got their piece of land and did what they were going to do. That really takes some kind of grit, and then ingenuity can do it, in their gut. To do that, you have to kind of be your own person. You have to be an eagle, soar alone. And you push back on being controlled by government and everything else, maverick mentality. And Australia is the same. The people that had the fortitude, forced or not, to go to this, amazing, beautiful, but barren wasteland and turn it into something in Australia. That's a whole different personality. Where in the world did that maverick DNA, that can do it DNA, get so lost, so programmed, to where you can easily be sold a bill of goods, by flim flam men? Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you've never been conned by a really good con artist, then maybe you're still naive. But I guarantee in Australia, when you get to these people, they've been conned in business. They've been conned by somebody in relationship or other situations. Yeah. Excuse me, you're being conned by a bunch of politicians and businessmen who want you to just be a zombie robot for what they want to do. They could care less about who you are, your family, your goals, your interests, and you're sucking right into it. If you apply an ounce of deductive reasoning, sanity, you know that what they're trying to sell you is completely false.
Yeah.
And yet, one of the things that it's battered husband, battered wife syndrome, where you have a mate that cows you into just going along with something just because it's easier than fighting. It goes both ways, male and female. You have people that have been so battered and badgered, they just, please just leave me alone. Okay, yes, just give me the shot and let me go on with life. And that's exactly what's going on. Even there, at some point, people reach a breaking point. They're done, it's over with. We know, and let me just say this, it's very important. In MK Ultra victims, which are people that they've been using programming to get people to do things a certain way. When we say MK Ultra, it was a CIA funded program to look at brainwashing and programming. And it was supposedly stopped, and we know that it wasn't at different times. It was going on through multiple countries. MI5 and 6 had a variation of it, and other intelligence agencies also, and corporations. So, but in a generic sense, it's commonly just referred to in a generic sense as MK Ultra. When we look at people that were victims of MK Ultra type programming, one of the things that we learn in research that is part of the records, it can vary a bit, but somewhere between 25 and 30, 35 at the outside. MK Ultra victims that you had completely, totally 1000% at 14, 15, 16. If they survive long enough, all of the programming completely breaks down. And it starts happening in the early 20s, and it's just done in most victims by 25. Some victims can go longer, but there's things that happen in the brain, in the psyche, and you can't program them anymore. And we think it has to do a bit with the amygdala and certain pituitary glands and cycles, but they're no longer as suggestible. The programming completely breaks down, and they'll just see everything. Doesn't matter how much of a victim, even with drugs that they've been, they will suddenly the mystery is off. They just are not programmable or subject to that programming anymore. That happens at the individual level, and it happens at the societal level. Now, I think what's going to be difficult, and well, let me just add this one other thing. And there's usually a trigger that causes that. So, for example, I started saying over and over and over back in 2006 and 7, wherever I got the chance to do it, I mentioned the fact that Barack Obama's wife was a tranny, and that its name is Michael LaVaughn Robinson, and that everything else was a hoax. And I said it over and over and over. I had a very famous friend who was a very famous comedian, George Carlin, and I had told him this. And I said, they're trying to set this guy up to be president. He's a senator there in Illinois, and his wife's a tranny. And he got so pissed. Look, I love you, but don't ever say stuff like that to me ever again. That's just plain mean, okay? and I'm not mean. I'm mean, but I don't want to be mean to you. Okay. So don't ever say that stuff to me again. Okay. I love you, but just no. So then he's at an event a few years later. Obama's president. Michelle is there. He's at this event. I believe it was at the White House. And he walks out. He calls me on his cell phone. And he can't even get off the property fast enough. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. You cannot unsee that. You cannot unsee that. That is a moose. That is a moose. You cannot unsee that. Oh, it hurts my brain. You were right, man. Hey, look, I'll trust anything you say from this point on. I believe you. That is a moose. He couldn't even. He had to freaking stop to breathe. He was so upset. So, what happened there was he went through a harsh deprogramming operation. Okay.
Yes.
Now, he was the one that told Joan Rivers. And Joan Rivers, and she said the same thing. It's in the comedian stuff. Roseanne Barr is a very close friend of mine. In the comedian world, in the Hollywood world, they all know it, but they're not going to say anything because they don't want to go against, it's like the king has no clothes, and everybody, if you're a good subject, and if you really, if you love the king and everything else, you'll see the beautiful clothes they're wearing. But it's only for those that love the king. And if you don't love the king, it'll be obvious because you won't get to see the clothes because you're not true blue. Okay. Well, they don't want to be the one that's not true blue, so they turn around and say, "Oh yeah, I see it." Okay, just
Wow.
That is a moose.
That is Big Mike.
I think it's a Sasquatch. Okay, I don't know, but anyway,
Juan, we've been talking about programming, and I'm a big believer. The whole theory that we are watching a movie, that things are playing out regardless of what we the people do at the moment. We can't have too much significant impact because of so many other things that have to play out behind the scenes. One of those things, I believe, is using one of the greatest reprogramming or programming tools that the dark side has ever had, and that's Hollywood. There's a new movie that's come out called Nuremberg, which features Russell Crowe, New Zealand Aussie, in the lead role. I was lucky enough to see it the other day, and the whole time I watched it, I felt that I was having the Nuremberg trials education that I needed. Why the trials came into existence, how the whole world was horrified at what was found at the end of the Second World War by the Nazis, that they had Nazis who had to stand trial. How did the world come together to hold X amount of Nazis on trial? What would be the consequences of any trial? And, how do all of the countries doing the prosecuting agree on that? It takes people all the way through to the executions.
It does. I got a call coming in. Hold 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay.
Yeah,
and
no
I
worries.
will let you guys talk about that for a second.
Well, I don't know whether I said or did the wrong thing there.
They're probably like, shut him up, shut him up.
Well, I actually believe, when I was watching it, I thought this is a great way to educate people of how the world brings people to account when, certain people in a government, or various governments for that matter, have committed crimes against we the people. And I think that this really does show it has been done in the past. So anybody who says, "Oh, it can't be done. How are you going to bring the world together to prosecute, the world?" Well, there are good people in the world who can and will prosecute these sorts of cases on behalf of their nation or a collective group of nations. There might be 4, 5, 6, 10 prosecutors. As Juan said, there are 71 countries that they've counted so far that have some form of electoral influence from Dominion voting machines or smart meters.
And we could see that when the indictments were coming in after Andrews was put through. People made the noise. What's going on? How could he get through?
Yeah, I just feel
Yeah,
that
sorry, I had to take a quick call there. I apologize there. So anyway, go ahead.
that Nuremberg movie is priming people to understand the processes required for the people of the world to hold world leaders accountable and the consequences of some of those crimes against humanity, which are specifically mentioned in Nuremberg, but treason, I think, is also mentioned,
Yeah.
have consequences that result usually at the end of the rope or standing against a brick wall. Is this a form of reprogramming humanity at the moment, gearing them up for those trials which you speak of from Gitmo, many of which I believe have happened already, and we're going to see them played out as live when the time comes?
Well,
it's
let me help you out on this, and this is a really important part of the conversation. Um, uh, within the whole Gitmo thing, first off, my chief of staff, Matt Meck, Marine pilot, A6 pilot, at the end of his Marine career, uh, he's a lieutenant colonel in the Marines. He served a year and a half, almost 2 years at Gitmo. He's the person that actually installed the media center at Gitmo. So we have a little bit of knowledge of what's going on at Gitmo and how it works, what's going on with potentially any trials. There's a couple of people there. We sent some gang members when Trump first came back into office to Gitmo. We actually have lots of film of it, them going in the gates in their orange jumpsuits like that, to let everybody know that it's open, ready for business. They are not doing the kind of trials you described with secret tribunals and things like that. And the reason that you can't do this and do it in secret effectively is because it's not a deterrent. The people would come down the road. It doesn't have the healing effect into the population. Part of what you do these trials for, they're not show trials in the sense that this is vengeance. This is so that everybody knows what really did happen, and to deter it from happening anytime again soon, readily, to stop this from ever occurring. What they did and seen, so they can't be glorified later. And also for the victims, so that the victims are able to have justice done in their behalf in this world and the next. Part of the reason I mentioned that it will be a huge part of these trials when we get there concerning election fraud all over the world, 71 countries plus the United States. Think of all those countries who have had leadership and continue to have leadership, but it's not of the people. It's of the drug lords. It's of the terrorists. It's of these globalista money monsters that are enslaving whole populations, that are in there because of vote fraud. And then tied to that directly, the greatest fraud in the history of mankind globally, with this COVID fraud, turning it into something that it was not, forcing the masks, which make it worse, intubating people and blowing their lungs up literally because the pressure was too high on purpose, killing millions just so they could steal the vote in mass, planet-wide, to have their globalist dreams come true, to make all the money all the time just for them. I got mine, too bad about you. Okay, their family, their way of life, their bloodline. That's going to be a tough one for the American people and for people all over the world to swallow. And that's why we have to break these illusions So when I first started talking, for example, about the Michelle situation, just like George Carlin, nobody wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
It just sounded mean. There was no, you couldn't go see the pictures you see today. But then people started looking more, and then they looked more, and then other pieces of the story came out, and it built out, and you couldn't keep the truth in a bottle. You just free it up. It'll take care of itself. And that's exactly what has happened. Now, the ones that are still in denial, and by the way, I'll give you another example just because I'm thinking of it right now. I have a friend, a family, everybody in this audience would know the name. And so wife and daughter had to go to a particular event at the White House. I had been one of the people, I was the date just for fun for New Year's. And wasn't romantic, was just fun. And we had a big New Year's party we're at. So in the course of dinner and everything else, we talked about, it came up that they'd been at the White House and how beautiful Michelle was. She's the most beautiful woman in the whole world. And I said, are you kidding me? That's a guy. No. I saw him. How close did you get? You couldn't see the shadow on the chin by the end of the evening? Oh, no. They left at some point. And so they, I only saw them for about an hour, and they were about, on the other side of the room, probably, 50, 60 feet away. I said, man, that's a moose. Okay. You're looking at a guy. And I can, take they'd go off on these trips, and they'd have all these planes to go just do one little presidential visit. I mean, they'd have 30 airplanes in the air, everybody going to tag along with them, okay? And one of them's the 747 with the wardrobe, just for Madonna, all the makeup artists, all the camera people, just to make sure that Michelle, looked her best. Took a whole 747 of clothes and that looked like a gal. So anyway, I think about a year and a half, 2 years goes by. And I'm visiting, doing whatever. And they had just come back from another event where the daughters, they're at it. And she says, oh my God, you're right. That's a guy. Well, how can we figure it out this time? You didn't figure out the last time. We had to shake hands.
I thought you might have been wearing a tighter dress.
Yeah. But at some point it just became obvious. Now, why is that important? Because somewhere in there, an event happens and needs to happen where the programming is broken.
Yeah.
The programming that all these politicians are just helping you with the shots. The programming that all these medical people are just caring for you. They're worried about you. They got a great plan. They're going to help you. And then your friend dies suddenly. No explanation. I'll give you another example because this is important. So had a friend, he's still a friend, actually is one of the few people licensed as an attorney to practice before the United States Supreme Court. You have to have a special license. And so we were talking about something that needs to go to the Supreme Court and everything else. And his wife is there, and they had a friend there, and then whose husband had just recently passed. And so then she had to leave to go somewhere, do something or other. When she left, my friend's telling me, oh, you know what the story is here? Her husband and I were friends all the way back to grade school. Best friends. These guys are in their late 50s. And they belong to the same golf club there in Houston. And his friend was absolutely not going to get the shot. No way. And they talked about it. And so his wife was so livid with him And she literally was talking about, well, I'm getting my own apartment. You can come see the glass until you get the shot. That's okay. I'll get a man cave and I'll pay you. I'm not leaving. You can go to the apartment, but I'm not getting the shot. I'm not going to let it kill me. And he was an attorney that specialized in medical claims. So he had this history. He really knew his beans. And so defiantly for the first, year and a half, he wasn't going to get that shot. And you could play on the golf course and you didn't have the shot, and you could do that as a club member. Originally you couldn't, and then they finally loosened the rules, but you couldn't play in a tournament unless you had the shot, because people are coming in from other areas, and that's the tournament rules or what's thing. And this is one of the most exclusive clubs in Houston. Everybody in there is, multi-millionaire 10 times over. So he shows up to play in this tournament, and the master of the whole thing says, so-and-so, you can't play. I don't have a shot card for you, and so you're not going to be able to play. Now, all his great friends are there, his best buddies there, everybody else is there. My guy that I'm sitting at the table with, he that weekend says, I'm not playing in the tournament because they require the shot and I didn't get the shot. So, I didn't play. His buddy was there and had other friends in from out of town from whatever other club it was they were playing, and he just flat really wanted to play. So he went ahead and got the shot. They had somebody there at the course that was giving free shots, and he went and got the shot and got the card and the whole schmear. And he didn't want to tell his wife that he finally got the shot, because then she'd rub it in finally, blah, 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 and everything else. And she'd made such a stink out of it. He wouldn't get the shot for her. Please, honey, for me, get the shot. I want you to be around. No.
You got it for golf.
He gets the shot, right? And so my friend and him are kind of laughing about it over the next couple of weeks. And this is a healthy guy. I mean, he's not golfing all the time. He's just a healthy guy like that. Keels over and dies of a massive heart attack, totally out of the blue. And the guy that is the doctor that is there, he actually goes and sits in on the autopsy because he just thought it was just so bizarre. He wanted to know exactly what happened. Well, they pull out these clots out of the arteries leading to his heart. It was actually on the vein side. And it was blocking everything up, and he had this massive heart attack. And they both looked at each other, and they knew it was that stupid shot. And he'd just gotten it a couple of weeks earlier, and it caused this problem. They were certain of it. They just said, no, there's no guarantee. It's the shot got him. They never told his wife that he even got the shot. My buddy is sitting there going, what do you think? I mean, I know the truth, but what's it going to do? They're not going to sue somebody. I mean, that's what his specialty is. He's a specialist in suing and lawsuits and things like that. He thinks, I should be suing the club. I should be suing the people that gave him that shot there at the Franken tournament. But I can't tell the wife. She's got a certain memory of him. They're both friends, and he just, he's wringing his hands. I don't think they've told her to this day that he got the shot. First thing she said, people were asking, well, did he get the shot? No, he wouldn't get the shot. That's not what killed him. Well, it was. Think about that. So he wasn't programmed, and yet peer pressure.
Yeah.
And the desire and the way the system was set up, and he succumbed. He gave in because he thought, well, other people have survived. I'm a healthy guy, whatever. I'm not going to get more than one. I got the card, and that was at the tail end of even when they were required to have it for the tournaments like that. It was dropped a short while later. Other members of the club said, we will not have any other groups here for a tournament. They're the largest club of their type in the area. Anybody wants to force it, well, they can force it for themselves, but they're not coming to our golf club and forcing it on us. And it went away.
Somebody who did come to a golf club over in America recently was a politician from Australia, Pauline Hanson, spent some time at Mar-a-Lago and fronted one of the CPAC meetings there for a speech. If there is a political solution in one of these 71 countries, ours in particular, is Pauline Hanson, do you think, going to play a role in that?
I don't know. And I will say this, and I was talking with folks over in Japan yesterday, and did an interview over there. I'm not, I enjoyed CPAC over the years, been to some of the CPAC stuff in various countries like that. They do a good job, but the CPAC today is not the CPAC back then. And they've left the reservation on anything to do with MEGA, if they ever were. I've spent time with the founders and some of the various people there, private dinner meetings like that. But the reality is that they've become, in my personal opinion, virtually irrelevant. And there was other stuff going on in the background that was actually pretty disturbing with a couple of the key people. Some of that leaked out. I don't want to rehash it today, but it's not, even though they continue to do these huge meetings and everything else, part of my complaint with a number of those groups who've done those meetings, and it fit a moment in time in the country, I guess, where it was useful to have these big meetings. But the reality is, I think that we're past that. That when you have a big meeting, you have these big names, they all run in, they get to talk for 20, 25 minutes. What they have to say, at the end of the day, it really doesn't amount to yellow beans. Get a little revelation here, a little bit of rah-rah there.
In this case, it's more the location, though, isn't it? One, I mean, the fact that she's at Mar-a-Lago, we knew that President Trump was at Mar-a-Lago at the time, but I think there might be a perception, and probably a very misguided one, that if you happen to be at Mar-a-Lago at the same time the president happens to be at Mar-a-Lago and CPAC is on, doesn't mean you're going to get some sort of behind-the-scenes meeting with him, does it?
Oh, not at all. Just because he might even be in the area, in the building, whatever, you get a few seconds, and that's not the same. I had a very famous person with me. We stayed at Mar-a-Lago. I think we were there almost just shy of 3 weeks. Which is, most people are there for 2-3 days. And even members rarely get to stay that much. And so in that course of that time, I did get, passing time with the president here and there. But it was very, you're not going to sit down and have a half-hour meeting with the president. He's got to get it scheduled in. You get out, if he takes you and go on a golf thing, you got 3 or 4 other people there. You're not just going to hang out and chew the fat with the president. Although I will tell you, okay, here's a funny thing to happen. So we're out by the pool. We have one of the great, units that has a pool, side room bungalow. Okay. On the east side of the whole complex. And so the president's out walking property because he's going to have some new roofing put in. He's examining what the roofing people are looking at. So he's walking the property and looking at all the stuff. And I'm over by the pool. Jen's in the room. And all of a sudden she looks out the window. He's right outside the room looking at stuff. And she's like, and he looks at him and says, "Oh, there's somebody in there."
She didn't offer him
He's
a cookie.
walking around the front. Yeah, I would have if it was me. I think she was just shocked. But he's so hyper busy. Even then, he wasn't president, but hyper busy. I think we talked more with him when we were at one of the rallies than we did at the property. As we were spending time there getting photographs and doing stuff like that. So again, his time it's in the rarefied air.
Yeah.
And even for members, I have a number of friends that are members at Mar-a-Lago. There's only 500 members, 250 from the Palm Beach area, and then 250 from outside the area. That's the max you can have at any time. So it's limited membership. And because of the county ordinances, it has to be half and half. It has to have at least 250 members from right in that area in order to be to run. So I've, been there doing stuff. One of my friends who's been a member for like 15 years said, you've spent more time with the president when you're here in those passing moments than I've spent the entire time I've been a member here at the club. So, the reason I say that is because, again, it's so passing. And when he has time to talk, if you get time to talk to President Trump, you're not really talking about, is the fishing good out in front of here? What do you think about the weather this week? Every person that gets to him has some pressing thing that they need him to know about, deal with, give a reaction to, take some action. Think about the position that he's in hour to hour, day to day, every single day. And that's his life. I think one of the biggest things they had to deal with, somebody had a friend there at Mar-a-Lago, and they thought, as a bit of a gaffe, there was a model of Air Force One with a different paint scheme that matched, John F. Kennedy Jr.'s plane before it went missing.
Yeah,
crashed, and with the orange or with the red stripe and the black and like that. So this plane was in the Oval Office when Trump was president during the first term, and then he had it at the entrance of Mar-a-Lago. So somebody thought, as just being a smartass, as they're walking out to get in their car, to grab this plane and take it, and they took it out of the state, went somewhere else. Well, they went and looked at the video. Here he is, got the plane, figured out who he was a guest of, and told the member, you better go get the plane back, and it better be in one piece when it gets back here, or your membership's gone. So the guy goes and finds his buddy. What are you trying to do? What were you thinking of? Okay. Well, the president, he probably spent more time talking with that member about this. He was a bit miffed getting that sorted out than anything else, even though security and everybody else done. He said later, says, no, I talked to the president more about that than probably anybody in the clubs ever talked to him. I think he's so pissed. But that's how limited his time is. Yeah. And as the guy that took it said, he was going to take pictures of it at different places and eventually return it. But it was a keepsake. It has a lot of other meaning that they weren't playing the game. They didn't find it amusing. But I understood his idea. It was, the plane's here, the plane's there, the plane's somewhere else, and become more famous. And they didn't see it that way. So.
Australia's social media ban came into force yesterday, our time. That means that all the big tech companies have had to slap restrictions on anybody in Australia under 16.
That's right. We can talk about those teenagers now. I can tell you all about them, and there's nothing they can do about it. They're not supposed to hear about it. I want to tell you, here's the issue with those teenagers, those kids. They are on a mission. They are trying and working diligently every single day to take over this world. We need them not to be able to hear our communications, or they're going to take over and we're going to be their victims. They'll put us all in old age homes. We have got to have some way to communicate with them out, not getting to listen in on us. I mean, what a brilliant move on the part of Australia to cut the teenagers off from hearing our communications so we can plot and scheme how are we going to spend the money before they get here.
Before they reach adulthood. It seems like only yesterday the Australian Labor government was saying they wanted to give 16-year-olds the vote.
It's crazy. It's just that,
you know what?
I think the kids are waking up, Juan. They're using social media. They got Snapchat. They're watching YouTube. They're getting so awakened by everything on TikTok, and the government are scared shitless, in my opinion. So quick, let's shut them up, get them off, And
Well,
yeah,
I think part of the thing is think about even the ages that they are restricting to. You know, kids today are pretty doggone smart. You know, you go back in time though, um, you know, a lot of kids, and they weren't horrible, were starting their families at 15 and 16 years old. Okay. And
yeah,
they raised a pretty good generation here or there. They were running their own, you know, farms out in the outback and things like that, because that's what had to happen. Now, I don't think it was healthy necessarily, but people mature, especially, you know, maybe the way things are today, maybe they do mature a bit faster, and maybe it's not so unhealthy. And so when you think you're going to restrict certain types of talk and like that, it really, what happens is they tend to seek it out even more. If if you think you're going to restrict them from having those types of conversations, hearing that kind of stuff, they're going to find ways to get around it, and you're going to have even less knowledge or control of it because you're going to do it, you know.
yeah.
uh, I think it's going to be, in the end, found to be a pretty useless um, law, and I think it really goes back to let the parents deal with it. Every
Yeah,
kid's a little
exactly.
different.
I think it's just waking up
And
the people, waking up the parents to stand up and take back their rights.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
think
just,
this is really a parenting issue, not a state issue. And the
yeah,
state, the government is stepping into it by trying to micromanage stuff that is not their place.
yeah.
That's where it's really at.
So we had also the FBI director, Mr. Patel, coming down to Australia back in August, I think it
Yeah.
was, Carl.
yeah.
Yep.
And then I think it was the police commissioner. Didn't he resign only a few days later?
The
Have you got any?
Federal Police Commissioner, yeah.
Yeah.
You heard anything interesting about that one, Juan?
I have. I don't know if I really. Let me say it this way. Washington D.C. is like the secret, you know, backstory place of the whole planet. There's more mysteries and secrets in Washington D.C. than anywhere else on Earth per square inch.
Yeah.
And so part of the problem is, it may be that I know precisely what happened. I think I do. But the other side of the coin is, number one, sometimes stuff is sifted out to see, you know, they tell the story 10 ways and see where the leak is.
Yeah.
And you don't know if you got a variation of the truth or the true truth. And so I kind of take it all in with a deep breath in order to, you know, over time, there may be stuff that I think is critical to know and to share. And there's other stuff where it's a juicy tidbit, but it's really, are you helping or are you hurting on the situation? And so I don't know that I know what the truth is. I think I do. And it's a lot broader than just Australia. And so I want to see how this fleshes out the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And you know, and plus, there's a story I'd love to tell you, but I think it might hint too close to what's actually going on. I'm trying to think what else I could say. At the end of the day, I don't want to. The rumor mongering can hurt good people, even though it sounds like it's absolutely true. How many times have we had somebody that was accused of something and they did step down, but it still turned out later not to be true?
Yeah.
But they couldn't defend themselves at the time. And so,
Matt Gaetz
am I
rings a
going
bell.
to? Well,
What
there
was
you go. That's an example. Yeah. And so I don't want to mention the specific something that would tip it off precisely, because I don't want to go against what I just told you. But there is a lot of stuff that I think the public does need to know, and sometimes it getting out. For example, I'll use something unrelated to your situation there, but yesterday, my friend Patrick Byrne put
yeah.
out something that he and I have both known for quite a long time, that Rick Grinnell, who was a U.S. ambassador and did all this stuff, and pretty critical back at the 2020 election stuff. There's film of him in the possession of several intelligence agencies from other countries, plus our own CIA and FBI, of him with a teenage boy. He's gay. That's late 15, might have been 16 at the time, engaged in sex acts. Okay. And so he's been being blackmailed since before he was the ambassador. And that's a pretty shocking revelation. Nobody had said it in public. We all knew that the allegation was there. So, and I'd heard it from multiple sources, which I'm sure all of the sources that I had came from the same original place. Okay. They didn't have independent knowledge. They just knew what the rumor was. Well, I didn't want to pass the rumor on. Now it's out in the public. It's a big deal. At the same time, Patrick mentioned that Radcliffe, who was the head of, was director of National Intelligence Office, ODNI, which is the same office that Tulsi Gabbard now occupies. Radcliffe was director of national intelligence when the 2020 election happened. He was the one that had the legal responsibility to give President Trump this document, this paper, of any information regarding foreign interference in the 2020 election. Well, he, in collusion with several agency directors, FBI, CIA, National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, NSA, National Security Agency, none of them gave their investigative work product to Mr. Cliff, and therefore he didn't give the report to Trump that he was supposed to under an executive order. So it was an insurrection. And then Biden eventually was put in office. Okay. Now, the reason I went into that detail is because even at the time this was happening, we knew behind the scenes there was scuttlebutt that he was seeing young women, not necessarily they were adult prostitutes, okay, in Washington, D.C. while he's doing his job, okay, and there was film that, again, multiple agencies had this film. I didn't say anything. I certainly behind the scenes in conversations. Why is Radcliffe not doing things? Who's got something on him? What is it that they have? How would they use it? Well, I was aware of all of that. I was there in the conversation. I know all sorts of stuff. I know the rumors, and they're everywhere on lots and lots of other people. But without direct knowledge, without somebody, without the film or report or whatever, it's not my place to, out somebody like that. And what if the rumor's not true?
Yeah.
What if it's, completely untrue? And let me just give you a quick example. So I had a teacher in high school. This teacher had been a he's a great teacher. He's an English teacher, but he had been a pastor of a church. My wife. Give me a little story here. There we go. Got it. He'd been a pastor of a church, and what happened was, and he was a pastor at this church for like a decade, and then all of a sudden things started going wonky. He had good attendance, and everybody was there, and blah blah blah, and people started acting weird around him, and he wasn't quite, what's going on, and then finally. A couple of the men from the, board or whatever of the church said, we need to have a talk. We need to have a talk right now. They dragged him off and go to a office room. We want you to put in your resignation, step down, go someplace else. Why? And these are guys that, he felt were his best friends and good guys. And, they'd worked all this stuff together and building projects at the church and all that. Well, we're aware of some stuff. We know you know what we're talking about and why. We just need you to step down. We don't want a scandal. We don't want a problem. He's like, what are you talking about? Scandal, problem. What are you talking about? We're aware that you've got a mistress. You are? I have a mistress. I'm happily married. I got 2 kids. You see us around here all the time. Well, we had an investigator follow you. On what basis? Well, one of the women in the church, in the choir, had seen him. They were living on an island community, and he had gone back to town, and he was at a hotel, and had come down from the area where the rooms were with a woman. They had lunch, and then he went back, over to where the elevators were and returned to the room, came back out later with a bag that, was clearly a clothing bag and stuff like that. And so they figured this was a tryst going on, had an investigator follow him, and about a month later caught him going over to the city again, to the same hotel, and meeting this woman, and leaving. They had pictures, they had everything. And so they know that it's true. They don't want to embarrass him. He's going to have to confront his wife about it, and his kids and all that. They didn't want to make a stink. They just want him to leave. And so that's his last day as pastor. They're going to pay him another week. He'll have his separation stuff, and he's gone. Yeah. And he's like, okay, so you do know who this woman is? Well, we don't know her name. We don't care to know her name. We don't want to, but we're done. He says, well, I mean, if you guys had come to me sooner, pestering now for months, I knew something was wrong, but I, couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I knew there was murmuring and whispers going on behind the scenes. Well, yeah, probably half the church knows what's going on. We just had to verify it. Now we've got the proof, and we're done. Okay. Well, I guess I'll have to call my sister and let her know what she got to do with it. Well, she's in the film. She's in the pictures. That's my sister. She lives in this other side of the state, and she comes over here monthly for training stuff as a nurse, and that's the room that the hospital gets her, where she comes over for training and does training on this medical stuff. And so I go over there and spend time with my sister once a month when she comes over. And certainly my wife knows about it. And he says, hold on a second. And he calls his wife in. And these guys now, the shoes on the other foot. And he's like, yeah, honey, we're going to have to leave the church. They're kicking us out because I'm hanging out with my sister. And he shows her, or he sets him up, with a woman, and not my wife, and shows her the pictures. She's like, oh, so-and-so, your sister? What's this about? What? Is that what this is all about? Is that why these people, I knew there was something wrong. Well, then he was willing to maybe try to reconcile. She says, no way, done, we're gone. This has embarrassed me, my family, everything. Done. Okay, we're out of here. She just was, because it was like flipping a light switch. They couldn't believe that this whole thing went in a wild, crazy direction. It was false. So when you start talking about, but we know this, or they're at the hotel, I think of that and I'm like, I believe there's a problem. I'm sure it's probably true in the Radcliffe thing. I'm sure it's true with the Rick Grinnell thing. It's out there. They're trying to tone it down, but these are key people around Trump, and they're out. They won't be able to recover from this. It's my opinion, and it is true. I'm pretty confident it is in this particular case. But there's other people that have, some problems also that are still going to be outed and have to be outed to clean the area around Trump up. Nixon. Very few people know this. President Nixon, and it's you can go Google it or search engine it or whatever, and you'll see that what I'm saying is true. Nixon didn't trust the FBI, the CIA, anybody to give him real information. State Department, he couldn't trust anybody around him. He was looking over his shoulder the whole time because he couldn't trust the people around him. So he created what they called the Houston Project. And the Houston Project was his own group of spies that reported only to him. He had an aide that set it up and were spying in Washington, D.C. to get the true facts of what was going on politically around him. And the Houston Project, all of the spies were hookers, male and female.
Like the old honeypot crew. The honeypot crew, hey?
Yes, and they went out. They went out and they would find out stuff, and it was for, to get it back to him. Nixon actually learned from his lead guy, who was a male prostitute, homosexual, learned from him about Watergate and the setup that was going to happen at Watergate 2 weeks before it actually occurred. This person met with him at the White House in the basement, spent an hour explaining the latest intel that they had, and including that they were going to try and set him up on a break-in at the Watergate. Nixon was incredulous. He's like, no way. They wouldn't do that. These are guys that I trust, and I just don't think that's going to happen. Something's not right. And he wanted to know intelligence came from a transgender woman, a guy that was portraying as a woman at the Watergate Hotel that worked there on the graveyard shift. And this male prostitute knew him and learned that information. That's very famous out there. This person who is the prostitute has talked about it extensively and had great documentation. It's very well documented. Why do I mention that in this context? Because so much of the issues within that political arena, it's the pillow talk, it's the, power is the greatest aphrodisiac. That's what Kissinger said, and he's right. And so they got to go out there and the testosterone is running or whatever. They just go crazy. And so, and it's true still today. We've seen the things happening in London, there in Australia, all over the world, in the church, Catholic and Protestant. It's part of human nature. We're dealing with this, and unfortunately, when there's so much of it that is true, it's easy to pass a rumor that isn't true and then slime somebody who's actually, just like my teacher was, Mr. Graham, totally, completely innocent, but you destroy somebody's life. And he left, never did any more pastoring, became a school teacher, did a fabulous job, was absolutely an amazing teacher, but completely turned off from all the rest of it because of the way these people acted in the course of this.
Okay, Juanito. Well, where can people find more from you? Is it the jennifermack.com.au? I think I've got Jen's site up here.
Yeah, Jen's got her store. We have a way that you can order and get stuff overseas, but for the most part, we don't do it because It runs into so many shipping issues. There is a way that you can order in the store, and then it goes through an independent shipping company that takes care of all that. And you
I've
have
tried
pay
to
for
do
it
that.
separately. And so, yeah, it's a pain in the neck. It's easier if you just have a friend in the States to grab it and then send it off or whatever. And I apologize for that. It's just
That's
it's so
okay.
cumbersome.
I haven't
And
been. I haven't
You'll
been
just
through.
have to bring it down when you come to Australia next.
there you go. Yeah,
There we
that's
go.
exactly
Some bathers, some shorts for Carl.
No.
Yeah.
I'm now a convert one. I don't know if I can get my boot to come up or not, but you've convinced me.
Oh yeah, yes. Peach it, brother, peach it. You know, I've been in the islands for a week and a half or so. We come over kind of often, but I haven't been wearing my boots the last several days. I've been wearing my sandals. You know, I look like I should be walking with Jesus out there in the sand dunes with my sandals.
Yeah, well,
But
it's like 97 degrees where I am here at the moment, so it's not good weather either.
no, but I love my boots, and the boots make kind of a statement anywhere in the world. Anybody knows there's a certain persona goes along with them, and I have the pointy ones. I love my boots, and so the long and short of it is that we, I love the Western wear. I even have Western Hawaiian shirts that I love, but I think part of the rest of the imagery with the boots is we got a lot of ass kicking we got to do to get this thing sorted out, and that's why the pointy boots are probably appropriate now. I need to leave a star in a few places,
Absolutely.
and show these guys to the door a bit so we can get on with life.
All right.
Well,
Thank you for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, we thank you so much, and I'm sure that you'll send us some text messages on what's going on in the world, like you flick us every so often. But do keep us in the loop.
Well,
of what's going
and I don't
on.
know if you saw it. For people that are customers over at allpatriots.gumroad.com, I have a customer list there that's fairly large, and so I will send out a note here and there. That's the only place that I actually put anything out. I don't have social media as such. I have somebody, a couple of fans that do different ones, and I'm glad to have them out there doing it, but I don't actually do it directly myself. But I will send out a note periodically, and I've been sending them out every a couple times a week right now while Tina's in this crisis that she's been in.
Yeah.
And the most recent one, I talked about Tina's situation, but I also compared it to what happened in World War II in the lead up to the Battle of the Bulge and then the Battle of the Bulge. And if one of your people down there finds that, it's out there around in a few different places. Somebody published it, but they only put half of the article in. It drove me nuts. There's a couple places now where the full article is there all the way to the end. And take a read at that. I worked hard on it, and I've sent some other notes out over the several weeks related to Tina and circumstances. But that one there, I think it helped you put it in perspective what all of us are going through, and the urgency of the moment to get Tina free, but also because not just for her, she's iconic. And so she's so representative of so many things we've all gone through. And so a win for Tina getting her free in its own way is a win for all of us. And even just like with America, as we get the truth of what happened at the 2020 election out and show how it was done, and then all of the injustices that were done since, not just here in America, but across the world, those victories here in America and a victory with Tina Peters personally will be the kinds of things that others across the world will latch onto for their own situation. You've got your own Tina Peters They're in Australia in their own lane. Same thing up in New Zealand, England,
Yeah.
other places all over the world, Canada. We all have our version of Tina Peters in the various countries. And as we build this out, a victory, an iconic victory of an iconic person like Tina is a win for all of us. And that's why I want to get it done, and her to be able to come out and speak to the rest of the world when she's free and talk about all the things that happened with her and like that. So I'm looking forward. Jen knows we want to come down to Australia and spend some time. I was hoping to do it all while they're filming there in Australia on my friend's movie for the next couple months. I don't know if we'll make it. We might make it just before filming ends in February. If we do, we'll let you know. But
Okay.
I Australia is one of my favorite places on the planet. It's so amazing, and I'm looking forward to coming back.
Well, we've got lots to show you, and I'm sure you'll have a good time, especially with Uncle Carl. And
We'll show you a good time. Don't worry about it.
all right.
Well, I
Thank you
mean,
so
the
much,
car
Juan.
stuff is one of the things I really enjoyed tremendously. So I would look forward to coming down and spending some time with you guys and see what you guys are doing. The Aussies build engines like nobody else in the world does,
Oh,
because you
yeah.
have a different kind of an environment that you have to work in. And so you guys have been pretty good at showing us a few tricks from there. So I'd look forward to coming on down, having some fun.
The world was thinking that Mad Max was just a fictional movie about weird-looking cars.
Oh, no, that was just Friday night traffic.
We call them
coming home from work. That's just Friday night traffic in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got one. Exactly. Once
All
again,
right.
Oh my gosh.
spending time with us
Thank
today.
you so much, Juan.
All right, folks. All right. We'll talk
Take
again
care.
soon.
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, there you go, folks. And I've got to say congratulations if you've stuck through the lot of it. I did tell you at the start it was going to be a long show. Pardon me, but I found it fascinating in a variety of ways. Maybe it'll be something we will discuss tomorrow night in the free-for-all. I think tonight it's probably a bit long in the tooth for many of you. And considering the time differences in the various different states that you're watching, particularly those that are an hour ahead of where I am, I guess it'll be well past some of your bedtime if you're still with me. So I just wanted to thank you for sticking it out so long. I wanted to welcome someone who has just joined us. Unseen Wilderness, I think, is the handle they're going by. Yeah, there you go. Unseen Wilderness across the channel and has now subscribed. Thank you very much. If you come back, and we really hope you do, if you come back, then you'll find that the family in the chat here is, one of the best. It's not one of, it's the best I've ever been involved with. And I'm so proud of having a place where people can get a chat like this going, a level of support that goes so deep that I hope you will learn to experience that yourself. I don't need to talk it up. It really is only people who get into the chat and enjoy that, the benefits of that, will know what I'm talking about. But it's been wonderful for many, many people. It's been able to connect people all over the country, in fact, all over the world. And it's one of the proudest things I have happening here. Out of my whole Voice of Freedom existence. It's just, been absolutely wonderful. To those of you who saw in the show there with Juan, I was getting a bit antsy at times. Yes, time was getting away. I was very conscious of it. And in fact, had I have had the ability, I may well have done an edit on all of that and made it somewhat shorter. But if I had have done that, it would have been the first show I would have ever have edited, because I don't believe in doing an edit. It can leave you open to taking people's comment context, and I've done that. that technique has been used in the past in areas that I have worked in, put it that way. You can't go and make somebody say something they didn't say. However, it depends on the level of scrutiny involved as to how far you can push that envelope. So let's not go any further into that. We just had a great chat with him for 2 hours, and I thought, well, I don't have time to edit it. I would want to play it tonight. So it is now up on this channel that you are watching it on. It's also up on the Truth Seekers Rumble channel. So, or at least it will be when I reach over here and hit submit, which should be about right now. Oh, I've got to check there to agree to a few things. And once I've agreed to that, then it'll do it. So it'll be on the Truth Seekers channel there if you'd like to check that out. I want to thank Becky O again for setting that up. We've actually been trying for, I want to say, the better part of a week and a half, maybe a little longer, to get one. He has been a very busy guy, and world events have kept him from us. As sort of we've been set up to do things, he has had to go off and save the world, or whatever it is that one does. So I found a lot of what he said tonight quite enlightening. I found a lot of things he didn't say pretty enlightening too. So that's sometimes what we need to take into account. And a lot of times when you're interviewing someone and you're asking questions, some people may think that some questions just come out of nowhere, just ad-libbed. Some people prepare their questions and stick to them quite rigidly. I am a bit of both. I have some questions and things I'm preparing to talk about, but you've got to go with the flow of the conversation. And if there are lines of inquiry that come up in that, then I like to try and follow those. So got to say, I haven't done a 2-hour show since Ricardo Bosi. I don't think he'd be about the only 2-hour plus shows I remember doing on here. And for those of you who've stuck around, thank you. You really are stayers. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed to the channel, then I urge you to do so, please. The one you're watching right now. But we have our main channel, which is the youtube.com/VOF. Is the main channel. We do have a couple of others on YouTube that are banned at the moment. We are going out on, what am I going out on? Facebook, 2 channels on YouTube. We're going out on X, and we're going out on our Rumble channel, which you'll be able to find Rumble /VOF, rumble.com/VOF. I think we'll find us there. And I did try Telegram, which we successfully were able to go live on until I couldn't figure out how to turn the audio on to mute, because I've got to have a window open for it to trigger as I hit the start button here. And that's why I had that awful bloody delay. And then the window, for whatever reason, disappeared. I couldn't find it. So anyway, that was the drama. How tired are you? You had enough yet? I got to say, there's only a couple of things I wanted to mention to you, and I'll make them very, very quick. In fact, I'll make it so quick that I won't even bother about it, because I haven't loaded them up, and that just seems pointless in me racing off toward it. So what I'm going to do is just say thank you to everybody who has stuck around. Thank you to everyone who is involved in this chat family, the Voice of Freedom family. And I can't wait to catch up with as many of you as possible. I know some of you are coming to Queensland over the Christmas break, and if the opportunity affords itself in southeast Queensland, maybe we can have a lunch someday. That'll be working out quite nicely. We'd love to do that. We might do that somewhere on the Sunshine Coast. We certainly will be doing it on the Gold Coast at some point as well, and have a few other bits and pieces lined up for next year that hopefully some of you will be able to get along to. Messages like this, Denise. Thank you. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for being part of it. Let's see if we can't make tonight's show the most liked, the most subscribed program of the series so far. Let's see if we can't bring our subscriber numbers up. We're nearly at 15,000. So let's see if we can get to that on the main channel. And there's a few more on other channels, but the main channel is the one we're sort of pushing at the moment. So if you would like to go across and subscribe to that, if you're not already, that's the voice of, beg your pardon, youtube.com/VOF. You will find us there, and look forward to catching you up tomorrow night for a Friday free-for-all. I've got to say that I was terribly encouraged in the chat with Juan O Savin tonight that he proved he's not a dickhead on the road. And judging by the look out of his front window, there weren't a lot of dickheads on the road where he was traveling. Where was that? Well, it's on an island somewhere. That's about all I'm prepared to say. But rest assured, there'll be dickheads on them there roads too. See you tomorrow night. Look forward to it. And Vince will be in for a bit of a chat. See ya. Bye.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!